Hey friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for stopping in today. I have a new layout to share for Pinkfresh Studio, and I've got 4 pattern papers pulled out that I want to use today. These are from Some Days collection, and this is one of the newer collections from Pinkfresh. And I thought that I would cut a little piece from each one, roughly around the 3x4 size, which is kind of the same size as a Pocket Life card. And my first thought was to use each piece of these 4 papers in sort of a horizontal design. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a piece from each of these papers. And all of these papers are quite colorful, they're quite busy. And I find that when I have busy papers, but I want to use several of them on a layout, I try to get small bits of each one so the entire layout isn't completely busy and patterned and colorful. So this is kind of what I had in mind. Just kind of place each piece in a horizontal line across the background. And of course I want to add some dimension, so I'm going to rough up the edges a little bit with my edge distressing tool there. And this just kind of gives them a little bit of a rough edge, like they've been weathered a little bit. And I played around with it for a while, but came back to this idea here. So I'm going to use thick, smooth, white cardstock for the background, and then I'm going to go ahead and glue these 4 pieces down in a straight line. And I am using my T-square ruler there to make sure that the top edge is pretty straight, because I'm going to sort of use this as my starting point. And I like that all of these papers are very colorful. They're very busy in the fact that the patterns are very bold, but I'm using a little bit of each one. So I feel like I can make this work to where it's not overly busy. Now this is the picture that I chose to use first, just one black and white photo. I'm going to wind up changing that here in a few minutes. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and prep the paper for some mixed media. So on the white part, just where the cardstock is, I'm going to add clear gesso. I love to use the Art Basics Finnabair clear gesso because it's smooth and it dries very, very nicely. I'm going to coat the bottom part and then a little bit on the top part where the cardstock is, because I'm going to add watercolor to those areas. And then for the pattern paper, I'm going to use white gesso. And I'm not trying to cover up all the pattern. I use these pattern papers because I want them to show. But I know where the photos are going to go. And so I want to kind of fade out a little bit of the pattern that is going to be shown around the edges of the photo. Because sometimes when you have a photo on top of a really busy pattern, the photo can get kind of lost because there's just so much for the eye to take in. And so by adding this white gesso and kind of fading out some of the pattern, it kind of gives it a more of a solid effect. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a minute. But I changed my mind, and I'm going to use these 3 smaller black and white photos of my silly comedian child making cuckoo faces while she's swinging one day. Yeah, whenever I say smile and I have the camera, 9 times out of 10 she's going to cross her eyes or stick out her tongue or do something silly. So these photos are of her being her normal self. But I want to have 2 photos mostly where the yellow part is. And so kind of underneath where those photos are going to go, I wanted to kind of drag down the yellow color. So these are the Pinkfresh Studio liquid watercolors. I'm mixing a little bit of the yellow, which is called Sunshine, with some of the orange, which is Clementine. And it's going to create more of that deeper golden yellow color. And I want that to kind of come down below where those photos are going to go. Also, side note, the Pinkfresh Studio liquid watercolors are 50% off while supplies last. So if you want to get your hands on some of these watercolors, I'll link those down below if you want to get some for a really good price. So I'm going to keep working on this yellow section here. I'm going to add splatters. I'm going to keep adding watercolor down below. I'm using a little bit more water. I'm dabbing some of it up. So just a little bit of everything here to achieve the look that I'm going for. And I'm going to have, like I said, 2 pictures over on the right, and then I'm going to have a little bit of an open section, and then put the third one more over to the left side where that aqua paper with the letters are. So there'll be a little bit of a space in between those. So now that I'm heading more over to the left side, I'm going to change colors with the watercolor, and I'm going to try to create that deep aqua color. And I'm using mostly the sky blue color with maybe a hint of the aquamarine mixed in. And then I'm going to continue that color up above here, so it kind of looks like it's kind of in a diagonal fashion with that blue color. And I'm not worried about the watercolor getting on top of the pattern papers. I want that to happen because I want this to look a little messy and a little haphazard, and you know, I want it to look like some of the paint got on the paper. And the gesso is on there too, so it's, you know, it's okay. But a little bit of green is going to be created here in between the blue and the yellow, which is cool because those two colors make green, and I was okay with that because there is some green on the second pattern paper, and I'm going to be using some green things later on. So I was hoping that a little hint of green would happen, and it is right there. So I'm just going to come back in with a little bit of the yellow and the orange to darken up some of this area, kind of where it's going to show on the left side of one of the photos that I add there. And I'm liking how this is looking. I think it's fun sometimes, well, it's fun a lot of the time for me to create a messy random background. But it seems like my last several layouts, I've been creating messy backgrounds, but more purposeful, meaning that I'm putting the mixed media in a specific place. I'm not just, you know, going crazy with the packaging or just letting the watercolor kind of, usually I will pick up the page and let it run and spread and blend, and then wherever it lands, that's how it is. But in this case, you know, I knew where the photos were going to go right away. And so I'm purposely putting the color exactly where I want it. And that's always fun too. You know, you can create a messy mixed media background with intentions or an intentional purpose like this, because I know exactly where the photos are going to go. I let this dry. I'm just showing you off camera here where I did a little bit of machine stitching. I went around all of the edges of the squares except the bottom part where it's torn, and I tried to use a matching color. I love to add stitching just for texture and for detail, and it just kind of makes it look finished, you know. I don't know, sometimes I stitch, sometimes I don't. It just depends on my mood. It depends on the layout. And since I had a lot of these papers on the background and I wanted them to show, you know, I felt like separating each one of them with a different color of thread would kind of emphasize each paper's difference. You know, there are 4 different things on the background, and make them stand out kind of each on their own. So this is what I was talking about. Intentional with the watercolor. I put it exactly where I wanted it so it would show around those 2 photos, and then in the middle where the gap is where I put most of the blue. And I love this little pocket envelope piece. Look at the inside of it. It's these beautiful rainbow stripes. And so I'm going to kind of tear little pieces of it here and there to use. I'm going to use the rainbow stripes as a little torn layer underneath the 2 photo cluster, and then I'm going to tear more of it and use as a red layer behind some of the photos. And that just kind of helps the photos stand out again against the busy pattern paper. If you have something that's a solid in between the photo and the busy pattern, it's going to act as a separator, I guess you could say, and just going to make the photo stand out and not blend in so much to the pattern. And I'm using red on this layout very sparingly. You know, sometimes I'm afraid to use a lot of red because it is so bold. But I feel like since it is in one of the papers, I wanted to scatter that color around a little more. Now I want to add a little bit more of that golden yellow color. Now that I am placing everything together and adding layers, you know, that is going to take up more space, and therefore it's going to cover up more of the watercolor. So here is where I am being intentional again and adding more in a specific place to make it more visible. And so, you know, even though this background is what I would consider messy, you know, and has lots of watercolor and splatters, it's still very much purposeful because I put it in a specific place where it would be sure to be seen and not covered up. Because that's one of my pet peeves when I'm making a background is I spend all this time adding this watercolor and everything, and then your pictures or the papers or the embellishments cover it up and you only see like a little teeny tiny bit of it. So when you do it this way, you're guaranteed to see exactly what you want to see, but you just have to be willing to kind of come in and out and add more if you need it as you go. And it's just a personal preference of, you know, what you want it to look like and what you want your finished product to be. So enough about the watercolor. I'm adding all the things now. I've got the chipboard circle stickers. I've got the ephemera die cuts. I'm going to use some puffy stickers. I've got, what else? Some, I already said puffy stickers. Basically all the things. And I'm just trying to space them around, see what looks good where. I'm going to use some flowers. I'm going to use some of the labels, the little tab label pieces. More envelopes with the little round clasp closure piece with the string. I love those. Cardstock stickers, that's another thing. And I'm just playing around. I'm not sure what I want to use. I'm looking for basically all the colors because I've got basically all the colors going on. So I want to scatter the colors around. I'm not necessarily trying to do tone on tone, which means only yellow embellishments on the yellow section. At first I thought I might do that, but if you look at the second pattern paper, it's got all the colors. So I thought, no, let me just scatter them around. So I'm looking for green, I'm looking for red, I'm looking for orange, yellow, pink, blue, anything that matches and kind of helps to balance all the colors. I'm going to tear the little edge piece off or the end piece off of that envelope that's pink because I love those. I love the string, the little circle clasp thing. I love when the Pinkfresh collections have those in there. I'm going to add a little cluster up to the top there, not on the section where the blue watercolor is because I want that to be a thing on its own. So I'm going to move the cluster over to the right side and then start to glue things together on and around the pictures. And I did put some tissue paper and some adhesive foam, or I'm going to put some adhesive foam. Here we go. I'm ahead of myself. Behind the photos and the layers to pop them up off the page a little bit. It's going to create some dimension and just create a little bit of depth and shadowing, which I love. It's amazing how different your finished layout can look just by putting some adhesive foam underneath something. It really emphasizes the layering effect and it just kind of makes things pop up off the page without being too dimensional. I'm going to tuck that little flower in between the two photos. Like I said, I'm going to add a couple of the chipboard circle stickers. That one over on the right says Big Mood, and then the pink one on the left photo says Favorite. I'm going to use a couple of leaf die cuts. This is a lemon, and I'm just going to cut off anything excess and just use it as a yellow circle to bring some yellow over to that side of the page. And some more leaves over to the right. I'm not really looking for anything specific. I'm kind of just going random here. I'm looking mostly for size and color at this point. Yeah, look at all the flowers in this collection. There's a whole die cut pack of just flowers and leaves, which are awesome. This is the puffy stickers, and I'm going to use it somewhere. It's a little orange, but I like the fact that it was orange because there is orange on that second pattern paper, and I'm trying to find a couple orange things to scatter around the page. And I tried to use this little puffy sticker that says something about today, but I could not make it work in the end. Thread, before I start to glue things down, I am going to add orange thread because again, there are some orange elements in this collection, but not a ton. But since I've got orange in a few places, I want to add more. And so thread, all my thread is from my stash. This is not part of the collection. It's just regular sewing thread. I keep it on hand. I try to collect all the colors that I can using the dark orange color. This is the darker teal bluish color that's all the way over on the left. I'm using it here on the right to kind of pull that color to that side. And just tucking it under the photos there. And then we're going to start to glue things down. Now, I do have things layered on top of the photos here, but only in the, the negative space part of the photo. Like, I'm not covering up her arm or her face or her legs or anything. I want to make sure that whenever I layer something on top of a photo, it is not covering up anything important, and it's not crowding the photo. I feel like since I've got 3 photos, she's basically doing the same thing in all 3 photos. I'm just, in the far right one, I'm further away, and then the other 2, I'm closer, and she's just making a different face, or she's looking a different direction. So you get the full effect of, it's the same 1 minute span of her doing this activity, but there's still open space in the photo, so I can put that big mood circle kind of in the bottom of the 2 photos, but there's open area there. It's not covering up anything important. I'm adding some twine into this little tag piece that I'm going to add to the top, and it took me forever because I'm a terrible bow person. I cannot tie a bow that looks good to save my life. So I had to turn off the camera and, go through a frustrated part of time there to get it right. And it's still kind of homely looking, but that's okay because it just is, but we're going to go with it. I'm adding the date to that little pink label piece up at the top because it was perfect for that. And then I'm looking for tiny little things here. And these are just little puffy stickers that are going to add pops of color. Trying some more of the chipboard circle stickers. I'm getting to the point to where I don't want to add too much more because I feel like it's getting to be to the that's enough phase. But you know how you just want to keep adding things? That's kind of what I'm doing here. But now that I'm watching this over, I can see that we're getting close to being finished because, adding things is fantastic, but you don't want to over add just for the sake of adding because you don't want to over busify the page. That's not a word, but you know what I'm talking about. Because like I said, the patterns of the papers are really busy, and then all this other stuff I've added contributes to the busy factor. But I tried to do a lot to emphasize the photos, and that's where the white gesso came in, that's where the layering came in. And so with all of the embellishments, sometimes if you add too many, you can take away from the effect of the photos and again start to make it look too busy. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. And it's all subjective. It's all what you want it to look like. So there's no right or wrong way to do things. This is just my own made up rules for myself and my own scrapbooking process. So just trying to explain how my thought process goes. Now, I'm working on the title here. I'm going to change this because it did not turn out like I was thinking. I was going to create, oh, this girl, because when I look at pictures like this of her making her goofy faces, I'm always like, oh, this girl's so funny. So I thought I would do, oh, this girl, but then it was just too much. So I took a break and decided to shorten it and add something in this gap area between the photos. And I thought, we need something orange. And of course, I had one orange flower left. So I'm going to pop that up and stick that orange flower right there in the middle. And I think that just needed to be there. I think it was perfect. And so I'm going to shorten the title to O Paige because her name is Paige and she's a hot mess, and that's why I love her. And I'm using the tall, skinny, green, puffy alpha stickers that come in the Some Days collection, and it just kind of fits right in there. And the leaf is kind of covering the O part, but that's okay. I'm not worried about that. And then I'm going to layer together a couple of die cuts, labels, things on here at the bottom, which I'm going to pop up. This yellow piece says loving it, and I just kind of made it crooked over a plain red and white label. And then this part here is a sticker that's pink and red, and it says, "Today was a good day." And I don't want to cover up anything else. I don't want to cover up those big watercolor drops. I love how those turned out. I do want to glue down the string that's coming down from underneath those two photos there, because it's going to just start flying all over the place if I don't. And I also glue down my thread strings so they stay put most of the time. Almost done. I'm going to add my journaling. I'm going to write it around the string and the splatter. You can kind of see there how I went around it. And then of course, you know me and my obsession with the essentials, crystals, and jewels. Today I'm going to add the jewels. I'm going to use a yellow color, a green, and a pink. Scatter those around in a couple places and then glue those down off camera because, you know, that's a boring process to watch. But anyway, that's the final layout. I love how this turned out. I'm so glad that I was able to use those busy pattern papers in a way that I feel like still enhances your photos, or my photos in this case. So many fun things in this collection. Absolutely love the colors. And, you know, what I love about this collection and the Keeping It Real collection is that they are so general in the sentiments and the patterns and the icons and everything, is you can make any type of layout with these collections. They're not themed at all. They're just, you can scrap a good day, you can scrap a bad day, you can scrap everyday photos, which is what I usually do. And I love that about Pinkfresh Studio collections. I took a lot of close-ups here. You can see all the details, all the dimension, the colors, the textures. I'm going to link everything that I used down below if you would like to get your hands on it. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions at all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you next time.